I'm Michael. I'm an Uber driver. And these are some of the conversations I have with people like you each and every single day. Ready to go? Let's hit the road. What are the 7 stages of disease? Number 1, enervation. Number 2, toxemia. Number 3, irritation. Number 4, inflammation. Number 5, ulceration. Number 6, induration. And number 7, cancer. There are several stages of disease. Here I describe the process of disease using 7 distinct stages. The underlying cause of disease in all stages is toxemia due to underhydration through the inability of our body to cleanse itself or even dilute its toxins. Although toxemia may arise from many sources, it basically exists because of insufficient nerve energy to sufficiently eliminate externally sourced poisons and internal wastes. Toxemia, in simple terms, is toxins or poisons residing within the body's tissue fluids, plasma, or blood, usually a combination of all 3 since they are all of the same fluid origins. Specifically, within soft tissues, cells, and the spaces in between, known as the interstitium. The following excerpt is taken from Wikipedia. The interstitium is a contiguous fluid-filled space existing between a structural barrier such as a cell wall or the skin and internal structures such as organs including muscles and the circulatory system. The total fluid-filled volume of the interstitium during health is about 20% of body weight, but this space is dynamic and may change in volume and composition during immune responses and in conditions such as cancer. In people with lung diseases, heart disease, cancer, kidney disease, immune disorders, and periodontal disease, the interstitial fluid and lymphatic system are sites where disease mechanisms may arise or develop. Diseases present many different aspects because they evolve within the progressing deterioration of the organism that suffers them. Disease has 7 distinct stages. These stages correspond to distinct differences of each stage of evolution. Number 1, enervation, lacking in vitality and general well-being. The first stage is not even recognized by most physicians as a disease. Natural hygienists or life scientists call it enervation. Most people call it nervous exhaustion. Enervation is a state in which the body is either not generating sufficient nerve energy for the tasks the body must perform, or the tasks the body must perform may be greater than the normal nerve energy supply can cope with. In any event, the body becomes impaired, and an impaired body generates less nerve energy if the conditions of overwork or undergeneration persist. Most people know when they're nervously exhausted. Enervation can be caused by the depletion of nerve energy in hundreds of ways. Sleep regenerates nerve energy. Obviously, insufficient sleep will not supply us with our needs. It will not fully recharge our batteries. We need sleep to regenerate nerve energy for the brain and nervous system. Nerve energy is a form of electricity measurable in millivolts. Sleep laboratories have successfully substituted electricity in place of the body's own. When this is accomplished, it is called electrosleep. It takes only 2 hours out of 24 to fully restore nerve energy in this manner. Demonstrating that nerve energy is electrical is easy. If you mash a finger, a message would immediately go to the brain and back would come a command to remove the finger from that which is applying the pressure. Moreover, the brain would command the entire balance of the body to cooperate in the extraction of the finger from the offending pressure. Only electricity is capable of such speedy transmission. No chemical process or circulatory process is capable of this kind of dispatch. It occurs only through a network of nerves with conductive capabilities, and electricity is the only form of energy it can conduct. I don't think anyone doubts that we do generate electricity, and that is the form of energy we use to conduct our physical and mental activities. Sensations are transformed into electrical stimuli and forwarded to the brain. The brain interprets these and sends out commands based upon the interpretation. Thus, if you put your finger on a hot object, the finger is commanded in a flash to withdraw it. The foregoing is to demonstrate that the body is primarily an organism that works on the amount of electricity it generates and which it has its reserves. If this supply is depleted or otherwise insufficient to cope with the needs of the body, then bodily functions become impaired, including the processes of elimination of both endogenous metabolic wastes and exogenous poisons introduced into the body. This impediment begets further impairment, including diminishing the body's ability to restore depleted nerve energy, and the body starts going downhill. The next stage of this decline is called toxemia. Number 2. Toxemia and/or toxicosis, the buildup of excess metabolic wastes. When toxic substances from whatever source saturate the blood, tissues, and the lymphatic system, then the conditions of toxemia and toxicosis exist. As functioning organisms, we generate a tremendous amount of toxic byproducts. We generate enough carbon dioxide to kill us within a few minutes. If our lungs failed to function, carbon dioxide buildup and lack of oxygenation would overwhelm us quite quickly. We can accommodate only so much carbon dioxide, and this is but one of many waste products. There are trillions of cells in the human body. Tens of billions of these expire every day. They are replaced by new cells. The old cells are broken down by lysosomes, enzymes that reside in a little organelle within the cell itself. Upon cell death, these enzymes break the cell down into many smaller components for elimination. These components are cell debris. Some of these components, such as iron, protein, and amino acids, are recycled by the body. Some 95% of the body's iron needs and 70% of its protein needs are met by recycling. Certain other of the body's needs are met by recycling as well. This will give you some idea as to the immense providence and wisdom of the body in meeting its needs. Other components of the decomposed cells are RNA and DNA. If they accumulate as they do in most humans in today's society, a condition of intoxication, toxemia, and/or toxicosis exists. These are what some call viruses, and they are often attributed powers of life and malevolence. Tissue and blood saturation with toxic materials can be caused by both internally generated wastes and pollutants taken in from the outside, which the body has not been able to eject from the vital domain. Intoxication occurs when we overload the body with toxic materials from the outside, we fail to observe our capacities, we overwork ourselves, get insufficient sleep, or are subjected to great stresses, or when any number of other factors deplete the body of nerve energy or prevent its sufficient regeneration. For instance, stresses, emotional shocks, and traumatic experiences can drain our bodies of nerve energy very quickly. It's just like shorting out the battery of a car. At some level of intoxication, we begin to experience the next stage of disease, which is called irritation. Stage 3. Irritation. The body sensing a toxic material within its presence. Irritation results from toxic materials being sensed by our nerve network. Most of us pay this stage little mind, and certainly physicians do not pay it heed. When we feel itchy, queasy, jumpy, uneasy, or when we have bothersome but not painful areas, irritation exists. For example, tickling of the nose is a form of irritation. Collections of mucus along the mucous membranes irritate, although this form of irritation is not painful. It is a gentle prod that moves us to seek comfort, to establish freedom from it. For instance, the urge to urinate or defecate is a form of irritation due to the accumulation of excesses or wastes greater than the body feels comfortable with. However, the urge is not painful unless it is ignored or until it creates too much pressure in its respective area. Near painful irritation forces us to deal with the problem. When a person drinks too much alcohol, we say that he or she is intoxicated. This is a good example of exogenous intoxication. While all alcohol intake is damaging to the organism, the body can speedily eliminate a small amount before much damage has occurred. Increase the intake, and the elimination is proportionately less and the damage proportionately greater. The first drink of alcohol occasions only irritation, which we also call stimulation. But any toxic material, be it salt, caffeine, or condiments, will irritate or stimulate. This is a condition wherein the body sets in force its defensive mechanisms and accelerates its internal activities. This might well be likened to an alarm aboard a ship where all hands are summoned. A frenzy of activity results in a bout with enemy forces. Unfortunately, this often makes us feel good or hyper or even euphoric. It is truly distressing to see a euphoric condition arise out of a situation that is damaging to the organism. If the causes of enervation, intoxication, or irritation remain in force and the body can't cope with it, the body initiates a responsive crisis called inflammation. Inflammation, stage 4, a body crisis response to a life-threatening situation marked by inflammation or fever. This is usually the stage in which physicians recognize pathology. It is the stage where sufferers are keenly aware of a problem, for it involves pain. As well, it involves the bodily redirection of vital energies. The intestinal tract is closed down. The energy that would normally be available for activity there is preempted and redirected to the massive effort to cope with this severe condition of intoxication. Lest the integrity of the organism is dealt a mortal blow or crippled, the body musters all to the emergency. In inflammation, the toxicants have usually been concentrated in an organ or area for a massive expulsive effort. The area becomes inflamed due to the constant irritation of the toxic materials. When inflammation exists, we are said to have an itis, appendicitis, tonsillitis, hepatitis, or nephritis, for example. Note that the itises just cited are all due to overburdening of 4 different organs of purification and elimination. The names of itises are usually after the organ or tissue area that is inflamed. Thus, if we have a cold, we have rhinitis. If we have inflammation of the sinus cavities, we have sinusitis. If we have inflammation of bronchial tissue, we have either bronchitis or asthma, and so it goes. We have these peculiar pathologies because in each case the body elected to eliminate the extraordinary toxic load through the organ affected. For instance, asthma exists because the body has selected the bronchi as an outlet for toxic materials. The condition is chronic because the toxic condition is unceasing. While the sufferer continues to intoxicate themselves, the body continues to eliminate the overload through the bronchi or alveolar tissue. Inflammation or fever is a body crisis response to a life-threatening situation. The body and the body alone creates the fever. It is evidence or symptom of increased and intense body activities directed at cleansing and repair. The extraordinary energies employed for a fever are at the expense of energies normally involved in digestion, work or play, thinking and seeing, etc. Fever is a healthy activity. The idea of suppressing it is equivalent to hitting a drowning man over the head so he'll cease his struggles. For instance, if rhinitis or influenza sufferers are drugged, it amounts to hitting the body's healer over the head. Thus, the eliminative effort is suppressed and the toxicity increases until other organs, usually the lungs, become saturated, not only with the toxicity, but the drugs administered as well. When body vitality reasserts itself, pneumonia is likely to result. Inflammation is the 4th stage of disease, and it is the body's most intense effort to cleanse and restore itself. The next stage of disease is destructive and degenerative. It will result if the causes of general body intoxication are continued. Number 5, ulceration. Destruction of cells and normal tissue structure. Ulceration means that a staggering amount of cells and tissue structures are being destroyed. Physiological systems are wiped out due to the body's inability to live in an unceasing toxic media. Where tissue is destroyed, there remains a void. An example is a canker sore of the mouth. Lesions or ulcers can occur in other areas of the body as well. These conditions are often intensely painful because of their exposed nerves. While the body may use an ulcer as an outlet for extraordinary toxic buildup, thereby relieving itself, it will heal the ulcer if causes are discontinued or if the toxicity level is significantly lowered. This process of repairing the damage is like patching up pants with holes in them. This patching up process is called induration. Stage 6. Induration. A scarring or hardening of soft tissues. Scarring is a form of induration, but in this stage of disease there is direction and purpose in hardening. The space is filled, and the toxic materials that threaten bodily integrity are encapsulated in a sac of hardened tissue. The ulcer and the toxic materials are sealed off by the hardening of the tissue around them. This is a way of quarantining the toxic materials, often called tumor formation. It is this condition that is often diagnosed as cancer when in fact no cancer exists. Induration is the last stage during which the body exerts intelligent control. Should the pathogenic practices which brought matters to this stage be continued, cells and tissue systems go astray, surviving as best they can on their own. Cells become parasitic, living off the nutrients they can obtain from the lymphatic fluid, but contributing nothing to the body's economy. They have become disorganized. Their genetic encoding has been altered by the poisons. Thus, they are not capable of intelligent, normal, organized activities within the context of a vital economy. When cells go wild in this matter, the condition is called cancer. Stage 7. Cancer. The end point of the evolution of disease. Cancer is the last stage of disease and is usually fatal, especially if the cause that brought it about is continued. However, cessation of cause and initiation of healthful practices may arrest its growth. The combination of these can revitalize the body so that the body may even destroy the cancer cells. It's all relative to the efforts and the energy of the individual, the host. Cancer cells are well known to live within hostile environments, reverting to a status of uncontrolled primitive cells like protozoa that live entirely on their own. All of these stages of disease are quite distinct in their characteristics, yet the lines are more or less arbitrarily drawn. This often happens in an attempt to categorize where one form evolves into another. The dividing lines oftentimes, though, have no clear-cut delineation. Regarding the topic of cancer, at this point I will digress, simply because it can take so many different forms depending completely on its individual host's unique environmental factors. People sometimes ask me when cancer begins. It can begin with the first cold or rash of childhood. The first crisis a pristine baby endures begins the pathological chain that leads to cancer. It can also begin in the womb in advanced stages if the mother's body itself is already in a state of disease. This evolutionary chain begins then because the phenomenon of disease is one constant violation of the laws of life from beginning to end that can be born into a child during its fetal development, an unfortunate starting point for a life so full of possible potential. Thank you for listening, and for more information, please visit our website at www.chewdigest.com. Once again, that's www.chewdigest.com.